Hey, this is Joel Plaskett. Welcome to the music.
Really appreciate it. Listen, we were talking earlier about coming to Toronto. You're now in Victoria, doing a lot of promo for your new album, One Real Reveal.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that, what was it? Your relationship to the music, to the songs changes.
Yeah. Well, when the record starts to kind of get out there to the public and I start talking about it, I guess, in the like press and that, this and that, I start thinking about it maybe a little differently, maybe because you're sort of on the verge of like singing the tunes, the song, the relationship to them changes. I always find like I've noticed when I'm over the years making records is you think you're doing one thing, then you get out on the road and you realize maybe you were doing something else or
Oh, interesting.
or whatever, or the songs. I mean, maybe I'm being a little, maybe I'm pushing that around a little too much, but there is something to it, like where you write a tune, you go, yeah, this is what the song's about, and then somebody else goes, I think that I listened to that song. Is it about this? And you're like, oh, I don't know, maybe, or you realize this has a totally different relationship to somebody. Somebody else finds something else in it, and so my own the songs shift a little bit once they
Yeah.
start making their way to other people. And then when you're being asked questions about it, then the danger there, and I can be pretty verbose, is that you sort of like you start talking about the tunes. It's like you pull on a thread and the whole thing falls.
Oh my goodness.
There's nothing there at the end if you talk too much. So but I'm not. I'm usually pretty good talking or articulating what I think I'm doing, but then I realize I'm unraveling it at the time that I'm doing it. So
I want to talk about the is it the sound of this album? And
yeah,
again,
yeah,
I've listened to High Summer, and I've listened to Rainy Day Janie, I
yeah,
think is how it's
yeah,
been, Janie.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um, it sounds different than what I'm used to hearing from you, Joel. But I
yeah.
also understand that the process of recording it was different. Like you literally recorded on a 4-track cassette.
Yeah, so there's these old machines called the Tascam 244s, which were one of the sort of, commercial 4-track cassette recorders from the 80s. I did some of my earliest demos on it as a teenager. My friend Charles had one. He lent me his, and I have one of my own now. In fact, I have two because I bought a second one that was a little shakier in case for parts because they're harder to find.
Oh,
So,
okay, okay.
um, and so I recorded High Summer on it last summer, and I was like, I really like the sound of this. I thought I was just demoing the tune, and then I was like,
Yeah.
and then I went, oh no, I kind of like this recording. Maybe this is all it needs to be. And then I thought, I like this limitation. I just sang the song with a guitar into one mic, and then I overdubbed other instruments while singing the harmonies at the same time. So everything's just
Yeah.
a single microphone 4 times, with a performance on a guitar and some vocals every time. And it
Yeah.
just made for this kind of like dreamy little world. That also, the nice thing about cassette is it's like it's as a time lock, it's not that good. More modern tape machines. I've got real hi-fi ones at the studio, like these big Studer reel-to-reels, like 2-inch ones,
Sure. Yeah.
really steady. And then of course digital recording, which is like very accurate in terms of its time lock. Cassettes have this like shimmy warble to them that even when in the context of a song, there's just this little drift. You don't really hear it. They're pretty good, but they're not perfect. And as a result, there's some sort of nostalgia to the sound. It's almost like you're listening
Hmm.
to your old cassette tapes,
Yeah.
which might have had a little bit of waver. And that's what I love about records and analog technology in general, is that little bit of shimmy makes it always different. You play it back the next time, it's never exactly the same. When you play a MP3 off your iPhone, it's the exact same length every
Just
time.
the file. Yeah.
Right? It's just a file, zeros and ones. Here it is. It's the same out of your phone as it is out of mine, barring the speaker. But if you put the cassette in your machine and mine, they're not
Yeah.
going to be just quite the same. So there's something quite human about it, in that relationship sort of way. And so that's what I love about analog technology, and why I kind of chose the limitations of the 4-track was because it just sort of, I don't know, it had a kind of yeah, it felt really real to me, even though, everything is always just a capture. A recording is a moment in time. There's something about it that felt relational.
Was it planned from the start that this is what you were going to do, or was it, you were just playing and it just sounded appealing to you and you wanted to continue?
I mean, I've often thought I'd like to go back to doing some four track recording, and I do
Okay.
them now and then. I put limitations here and there, but I think it was more like when I heard it with that song, I went, "Oh, I like this. What if I took some of these other songs and just kept them in that same
Hmm.
relatively unadorned, not a hi-fi record per se, but it's not lo-fi. I was using a really, really good microphone,
Yeah.
you know, really nice old vintage mic from the 60s, little tiny pencil condenser. And I had it in what's called Omni. So as opposed to cardioid, the mic's in cardioid, it captures just what's in front of it,
What's
figure
in
eight,
front? Yeah.
side of it. Omni's the capsule is open to the whole room. And so it was nice because then when you're playing, if I would sing a line and I'd sing it this way, it might reflect a little more off that wall. And the mic, even though it's a monophonic signal, so it's just in mono, it sort of somehow captures that little bit of movement.
Yeah.
It's capturing the way your voice is reflecting in the room. And that to me also had some sort of interesting magic to it. I don't know that anyone else would notice it, but there was something I really enjoyed about singing in that format, in that microphone. I just was like, and I'd have to balance the sound between my voice and my guitar. I'd have to sort of pick the spot where the mic would sit so that it would capture both equally. And then,
Yeah.
and then, and then when you go to mix it, it's not like you can turn the guitar up because you're turning your voice up
Everything goes up. Yeah.
so everything just becomes, it gets kind of locked as the way it is. And then when you're listening as a listener, the thing I found was it feels like you're there and someone's moving a little bit in and out of your perspective. Like it felt like there's something about the capture that feels like you're sitting in front of the source. I could be wrong. You could tell me, but there was something very
as
charming about
as
it that way. Yeah.
as you're speaking about it, I'm looking at you, and you're sitting by the window, and there's light and there's shadows. And so as you're speaking, I'm thinking like shadows in the sound, like
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
stuff
I mean,
comes. Yeah.
that's right. I mean, it's exactly it. I mean, everything, um, kind of, and even, I mean, even lyrically in this record, there's a lot of kind of shadows, or even the kind of the tension of opposites, like two things, like High Summer plays with that a little bit, where there's a kind of bridge that goes, don't just sit there. Be careful what you wish for. When are we going to get there? Should we get off on this floor? You have this kind of like back and forth between should I stay or should I go? Like they're questions. You got to
Yeah.
make a declarative sentence like don't just sit there. Be careful what you wish for. Then two questions. Two statements, two questions, and the sort of shadows that every time you state something, you create a shadow, right? Like every time you go, this is what I'm going to focus on. Something else is over there that you can't. And so, I mean, these kind of like baked into the fabric of reality, right? We know this. You can only your attention moves, but there's something uh, about seeing if you can capture that like little bit of motion. So sometimes you feel like, wait, what's that over there? Maybe your attention drifts a little bit. I mean, I'm kind of talking, maybe I'm just riffing on what you're saying to me, but I feel like the I'm interested in that idea that you can you can you can capture something mysterious, and you can try to go at something directly and goes, here's how I want to make you feel, or here's what I want to do.
Yeah.
But I'm less attracted right now for my own work to something that's really, really explicit. I like something that's more implicit. So like lyrically, and I don't mean explicit in terms of like, you know, sensational exactly, more just the directness of like explicit, this is what this song is about, or here's what I'm trying to say to you. I need you to understand me here. It's like I would rather see if there's a way to imply something so that the listener can find themselves in the music and in it, and maybe find their own kind of way through it. And I do have things
Yeah.
that I'm trying to convey. I'm trying not to be wishy-washy, but I don't feel like I feel like I want there to be some entry points that feel like, oh, what's behind this door? And like as a result, even writing that mystery into it for myself, where I'm like, I'm not sure what I'm saying here, but this sings right. I'm going to leave it here, and
All
I know
right.
it will reveal itself later. in a real,
Joel, is there a one real reveal? Like what is it? I need to ask that. What is the one real reveal?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess that would be that I think that's maybe only time will tell. I love the way that phrase rolls off the tongue. It shows up in a few of the songs. And I think it's more like there's a search on the record a little bit, or there's an allusion to sort of there's a title track called One Real Reveal. And the opening line goes, I'm not so sure they're going to set us free. But if you're walking out the door, wait for me. I'm hot on your heels. I know how it feels waiting on one real reveal. So the idea of like somebody
Mm.
searching for themselves or for something, and in that search for self, which is part of what we do as we get older anyway, or even younger, like, but in that sort of in trying to, what I realize in my own sort of like inner journeys, for lack of a better word, is you only really get to know yourself in relation to some degree because you're constantly like other people inform you and change you in the moment. So in this pursuit to try to understand oneself, as soon as you have a conversation with somebody else, you've changed. And you're like, wait, now I got to get to know myself again because there's some new piece of, I mean, so there's this idea of like trying to find your own individual path through something and then realizing that you're not hemmed in, but you exist because somebody else does too, right?
That
That's how
is
you get
so
your
true.
sense of I, is because there's a you, right?
Mm.
And so this album dances around that a little bit, and it's maybe romantic as a result because it's kind of like there's always an other. There's also a bit of a like a divine feminine presence for me, on the record, um, that's there as well. So uh, it's kind of like there's a slight maybe spiritual underpinning to the record without getting too heavy-handed about it, but there's also just sort of a kind of romanticness to it that I quite like. Um, yeah, and then there's some nostalgic stuff, but I don't think it's an overly melancholy record. I think it's actually sort of it's just gentle and maybe a bit contemplative.
Will you're going on a cross Canada tour.
Yeah, yeah,
And I have to say congratulations because there's a bunch of venues that are already sold out,
yeah. I'm
which
thrilled.
is
Yeah.
which is amazing. So that's great to see. Will your concerts, will your presentation of this album, will it reflect what we hear on the album, or is there thoughts of presenting the songs differently?
Well, I'm going to play them as I sang them, and but that being said, I mean, I recorded them with multiple voices and multiple instruments, so it's just going to be me on my own with a handful of guitars and different tunings that I can play because there's
Oh,
varying.
nice.
Yeah, so and I've got a bit of a set that's coming with me, like some things. I won't give it away. I want it to be a no cell phones event. I'm going to ask people to keep their phones off and not document
Yeah.
it because I'd like the show to feel new for people every night. So I'd like to try to sort of keep it off social media just so that again it can be very relational, and you're not sort of it's not being kind of filtered through technology, as well as just to kind of keep it special every night.
Yeah.
Um, we've been running. There were these shows running back in Dartmouth that we do once a month called the Window and Wednesday, and little secret shows to 35 people where nobody knows who's playing. And we made those cell phones free. We've been running for about a month and a half, and it turned out to be a really great thing because people were all talking to each other. Nobody had their phones out. And I mean, most of the time in theaters, people don't do that anyway. But there was something about sort of like explicitly stating that, like, we would like you to keep your phones in your pockets and off for the duration of the event, that just sort of put people in a different mood where they weren't tempted by that distraction. And so I'm going to see if I can get away with that on this tour and have people abide by that ask, just to kind of keep it sort of, and that way I think these new songs, they're very relaxed. So I want the show to feel kind of relaxed, like you're in my living room. And
Oh,
yeah, yeah. And then of course, like I got lots of kind of rocky tunes and other songs and requests that people, and so, I always try to honor the fact that people are coming to see some of my other catalog, and I'll be doing that as well. But I'm looking forward to singing some of this new stuff for sure.
that is awesome. I am so looking forward to that. Um, I want to ask you this, Joel. You know, we've seen a change across, here in Toronto where I am, and maybe where, on the East Coast where you're from, but venues are shutting down. They're changing, new names, new ownership. We have a segment called Lost Venues.
Right.
Uh, I'm wondering if you have a story of a place that no longer exists.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think I got a few. Let me think. I mean, there were a lot of great venues that have come and gone. I think of some in Halifax, like the Double Deuce was a really great one that we played early on. The Flamingo. Um, there's a lot of good venues. Let me think of one that has an interesting story. I wonder, I don't think this is there anymore. Maybe we'd have to look it up. Maybe you can look it up while I'm telling you. Is
Yeah,
Jailhouse Rock still in Montreal? I think it's long gone. Is the Jailhouse Rock still around?
I'm
So,
gonna check
if
it
it is, I'm
out.
going to be impressed. But if it's gone, I think it's gone. Jailhouse Rock, Montreal. Does it show up?
Jailhouse Rock,
Yeah.
Montreal. It
Yeah.
shows up, but let's see if it's.
Does it exist? Oh, maybe it
Uh,
exists. So I can't tell the Jailhouse Rock story.
hold on.
What's
No, wow, it closed decades 2001.
that sounds about right. Yeah, that's what I thought. So we played the Jailhouse Rock, the first Hermit show out of the first Montreal show of our own outside of, I think, a show we did opening for Sloan. First club show was at Jailhouse Rock,
Oh,
1993. And I remember jumping off the stage there and the ceiling sloped down. We were always running around the stage like going crazy. And I jumped off the stage and the ceiling kind of sloped at the beginning and there was like a big bolt. And I whacked my head. I mean, I cut my head open. I was rolling around the floor. I had blood all over my head. I really remember that at the Jailhouse Rock. I don't know. That's one of the sort of like, tour, tour, not horror stories exactly, but one of the sort of foolish moments. I remember that one.
rite
And
of
then,
passage.
yeah, rite of passage shows. Exactly. One that you remember. You remember that venue, you remember that stage, that ceiling, that feeling. All of it. Yeah, yeah. And then kind of writhing about on the floor, like trying to pretend I wasn't hurt, going, "Jeez, what did I do to myself?" Yeah.
Did you have a thought at that point that, okay, maybe I need to go punk rock? Like, was there a thought
Yeah,
of
like
changing?
full Iggy Pop at that point, Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Just let it go. Yeah, I mean, we were pretty punk rock at that time. But yeah, I was, I mean, we soldiered on, but I did realize like I'd whacked my head pretty good and cut my head open. But you there was another one I remember actually, same era there in the Hermit days. A little later than that, we played the Night Gallery in Calgary, which was a really great venue, and that was one where Ian, our bass player, ended up getting cut with some glass from a broken pitcher or something like that, or some glasses that were on stage. And yeah, he was hanging from the lighting rafters and
Oh my goodness.
he breathed fire at one point. I mean, there were some wild shows. Yeah, a lot of venues in the rearview mirror, man. Like just like 30 years it took. Most of them are gone. Yeah.
Yeah, that is awesome. Joel, you have a song you might want to play
I could sing
for
you a
us?
short
Let's
little
see.
tune with this. I'll sing you one from the new record, I guess. Let's see if I got.
Yeah, yeah. What song do you want to play? What
I
song are you
think I'm going
thinking?
to play this one called Breezy Jane, which is the last song on the record.
Tell
So
me
yeah.
about that song. What's that? What's that song about for you?
The Breezy Jane, I couldn't figure out where to put it on the record. I had the song done and I couldn't find it in the sequence. Kept thinking it was going to start aside or something. And then I realized it was the last song on the record. And maybe because it kind of feels like the epilogue. It's sort of like it's about maybe like going it's Breezy Jane, where you've been all my life. But it's almost like realizing the thing you were looking for was there the whole time. It's like that there's like what is it, a Zen koan or something, or an expression. It's like, before enlightenment, chop wood and haul water. After enlightenment, chop wood and haul water. It's like you do the exact same
Hmm.
thing, you just have a different perspective on it. Now, this is by no means about enlightenment exactly, but it does kind of, I guess, kind of is that same idea, which is like, oh, if I had just noticed you sooner, maybe where you been. So that's sort of what Breezy Jane's about. So, all right, as promised, this is Breezy Jane. Breezy Jane, where you been all my life? Breezy Jane, I was going through the motions, staying couldn't care less that I'm standing in the rain. Where you been all my life, Breezy Jane? Breezy Jane, you're the frame and the reference point. You're the spark and the flame, you're the whole damn joint. I'll say it all again and again and again. Where you been all my life? Like a precious metal, you're extracting it. Like a higher power, you're contacting it. Your love's a contract hit. You got my number and my name. Where you been all my life, Breezy Jane? Breezy Jane, where you been? You've been turning up the gain, ripping and rocking, driving me insane. Like Mercury and Bowie, shaking bottles of champagne. Where you been all my life? Like a precious metal, you're extracting it. Like a higher power, you're contacting it. You swept me off my feet like a holy hurricane. Where you been all my life, Breezy Jane? Breezy Jane.
Now, is Jane and Rainy Day Jane, are they the same?
I don't know if they're the same person. No,
Okay.
wasn't thinking about them as the ssame person. No, Breezy Jane's more like some sort of kind of energy, it's like a divine, divine might be a strong word, but Breezy Jane is sort of like this. Yeah,
Ah,
kind of like the kind of the this light,
all right. So
kind of
different than Mary Jane.
different than
There's
Mary Jane.
okay, all right.
Maybe under the influence of Mary Jane. I have no idea. There's a lot of Janes in my life.
There's I hear you.
Yeah.
Joel, listen, this has been great. Thank you so much. I looking forward to the tour. We are recording this on September 12th. Your album comes out tomorrow. Um, uh, really looking forward to it is what I can say. I want to end off with this. When you're in the car, maybe driving to a gig, maybe you're going to the beer store or whatever. What do you listen to in the car? What are you playing these days?
These days, I've been really in love with I just heard it a week and a half ago when it came out or so. But the latest record by Gillian Welch and David Rawlings, Woodland, um,
Okay.
is really beautiful. I mean, I've been a big Gillian Welch fan for a long time. Her and her partner David Rawlings, he's an incredible guitar player. They sing this beautiful close harmony. Um, can't recommend that record enough. There's this song called Howdy Howdy that I'm pretty obsessed with right now. They sing back and forth and then split into harmony, and oh man, it's just gorgeous. It's a sublime record. They're really something. So that's sort of as far as new music goes. That's I don't tune into a lot of new music, but that record's been on high rotation right now.
All right. I forgot to ask you this question, Joel. I apologize. Let me ask you this. The artwork
Yeah.
uh, that I'm seeing. Tell me about that.
So the artwork for the record was made by my wife, Rebecca Kratz. They're these
Oh,
wood-burned paintings that she made in the 2000s, and they were hanging on the wall in the office where I was working on a lot of this record. Um, and I've just loved. I mean, Rebecca's done the art for a number of my records,
okay.
and so people who are familiar with my albums or are familiar with their artwork. But yeah, like there's something about these three images. There's a really beautiful gatefold. If people pick up the vinyl or the CD, there's a sort of front cover, back cover, and gatefold. And she didn't make these images for the record. In many respects, the record might have been made more for these images. So anyway, I'm fortunate that she let me use them. And yeah, they're really beautiful. Anybody who sees it goes, "Wow, this is gorgeous art," and it really is. Yeah, she did.
Is there and there's something about like it goes together. The music, when I'm listening to the music and I'm looking at the image that accompanies that song, I'm like, yeah, that there's like it fits.
Oh, good. Well, that's because I was sitting there in front of it while I was writing and recording. So yeah, it was part of the process for sure. Yeah.
That is awesome. Joel Plaskett has been my guest. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. To find out more information about his new album, One Real Reveal, and where he's going to be playing in Canada, go to joelplaskett.com.
Kareem, thanks so much. Appreciate the time.